Falcon fans, Falcon Nations, welcome back to another episode of Dirty Fanatics United. I am your host tonight with a special guest in the building. Mike Johnson joins Dirty Fanatics United to talk Falcons football and real stories here with DFU. As always, I'm followed by my awesome panel of co-hosts, Robert, Cody, David. What's going on, man? Glad to have y'all here tonight. Mike, thank you for your time to come through and talk some Falcon football with us as you do all week long on your show. So glad to have you here tonight and appreciate the time here with you.
Yeah, man. You guys know the deal, man. I'm always willing to stop through and talk a little Falcon football. And it's an unfortunate busy time to get to some Falcons headlines. I wish we were talking about playoff football, but that's not the case right now. So yeah, good stuff.
Yo. Robert, Cody, David, what's going on, man? It's been a week since we did our last podcast here. Busy week for all of us, but a lot of Falcon news to talk about tonight as a lot of interviews have happened. A lot of breaking news has happened throughout the week as far as coaching candidates. Cody, appreciate the reach out to Mike Johnson, always a clutch performer when it comes to getting a special guest, Mike, on the show. Robert, how you been doing, brother? And what's been going on in life?
Doing pretty good. Still recovering from the eye surgery. Go back to the doctor this week. Hopefully get medical clearance and get back to work. But enjoying the downtime and we're in patience then, waiting on, the word for official hires and interview news and so forth. But, hey, it's an exciting time to be a Falcon fan right now.
Absolutely. Cody, what's going on, brother? How you been doing, man? How's life treating you?
Man, it's been a busy work. We've been shorthanded for the last 2 days, doing 11.5-hour days. So we're here, happy to talk Falcon football. Like Robert said, Mike said, it's – unfortunately, we're not talking playoff football right now, but man, it is an exciting time right now to be a Falcon fan. This is honestly the first off season I've looked forward to in a very long time.
Yeah, exciting off season for the Falcons to hit it just right, and you may have a playoff team next season. David, what's going on, man? My Dirty Bird Nest season ticket holder was my guy Cody here. How you doing, man?
Been a busy week. Not the best of weeks, I love following my daughter around with her on the basketball season. Unfortunately, bad news with that she tore a meniscus a couple of weeks ago and had surgery today. So she's on the mend. That's on the end of season for. But all to the good. She'll come back better and stronger. We hope so. But like I said, any chance we get to talk Falcon football, I'm all down for it. Just a little hour, at least get my mind off of that for a little bit.
Absolutely.
And chop it up with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, David, that comeback story is going to go crazy next season. Falcon fans, let's get into it. We have the man in the building with us, Mike, ready to talk some Falcon football. Mike Johnson, first question out of the gate. Obviously, you've played the game. You've been through this situation, hot ups and downs throughout your career, whether that be college or NFL. What was the biggest issue holding the Atlanta Falcons back right now, or maybe this season or the past few seasons, to reach that playoff?
Man, boy, you hit me over the head with one right out the gate, didn't you?
It was the best one. It was the best one. I had to do it.
Yeah, man, here's how I generally feel about it. And I've been thinking I've been going crazy on the radio, right? We talk about, this game, that game, the outlook, the past, this coach, that coach, the game plan, the X's and O's. But as you guys know, like everything for an NFL team has to kind of go the right way if you're going to make a Super Bowl run. Like this player has to develop. You have to hit on that draft pick. The coach has to call this timeout. The game plan has to feature this player. You have to, first of all, hire all the right people, under the right circumstances. And last week, I got a chance to go to Arthur Blank's press conference that he did over at his office, West Midtown area, or wherever his office is located. And sitting in there right at the end of the press conference, the question was kind of asked, hey, when you brought in this search firm, what was surprising to you, or what did it kind of return? And he said, there wasn't a very clear vision for the team. And my mind exploded because I felt so affirmed in that moment, because I have felt that and have been preaching that over the last couple of years. There's not a clear vision. We have good players, and this is really to me what it comes down to when you talk about forward-facing decisions. I think Jake Matthews is a good player. Chris Lindstrom is about to go. He's an all-pro. He's about to go to the Pro Bowl, right? Kyle Pitts has a great second half of the year. Bijan Robinson, all-world, everything, maybe the best player in the NFL. Kirk Cousins, elite processor at times, this, that. Michael Penix, arm strength. Go on down the list. Like, there's good players, right? Divine Diablo, Jesse Bates. But so many times do I look at this team and I think, this guy is good, but he doesn't fit with everybody else. Like, this guy is good at that, but he doesn't fit with everybody else. Prime example, we're going to hear a bunch this weekend about Nate Landman. Right, Nate Landman this, Nate Landman that. Nate Landman's the captain of the defense out in L.A. Boy, they really found a gem in Nate Landman. Guys, when Nate Landman was here, he's a good player, but he didn't fit what we wanted to do. He didn't what we were asking of him. Divine Diablo fits what Jeff Ulbrich is asking of him, but I think from top to bottom, you look at all the decisions made, and this is really where the conversation about the draft comes in, about when you get the best player available. It's not that clear cut. What does that player do well, and do they fit what the vision is for our franchise and for our team and for our coaches? That really is where I feel like this team, not just for the last year, last 2 years, but really the last 5 almost or 6, has really hit a roadblock. Not every piece that they have involved in this team matches up with one another. Good pieces individually, good coach, good position coach, good coordinator, but it's been hard for us to get everything pointed in the right direction. And, I think you saw that kind of rear its ugly head more times than you wanted to this year, and that's why we're in this position right now.
So, well, and Mike, do you think that that's because of the inconsistency of, it's like, I feel like, in the last 8 years, it's been new head coach. I guess with Terry Fontenot kind of being around, you had some consistency there, but I mean, you've got Mike Smith, and then you've got, Coach Raw. Is that kind of where you feel like, the vision is, I think you said it best. I heard you, on the radio, it was kind of like a mixed mash of players, just kind of all thrown out there. Do you think that's because of the inconsistency we've had at head coach? And
yeah, I think that, how can I best say this? I don't think you brought in coaches that fit best what you were capable of. And I'm sure that Zach Robinson's a good dude. I think we had this conversation last time I was on with you guys. I'm sure he's a great guy, and I'm sure he's very bright. But what Zach Robinson wanted to do in the passing game didn't fit what Dwayne Ledford had for the run game, right? Yep. Didn't fit what Arthur Smith had. There's a reason, guys, that Arthur Smith thought he could win with Desmond Ridder. Was he right? No. But he thought he could do that a lot of times because of the mobility of Desmond Ridder. You needed a mobile quarterback. And then you have Raheem Morris come in, and he's like, oh, we need an elite processor. Let's get arm strength of Michael Penix. Let's get Kirk Cousins, which neither one of those guys match up with what you were doing in the run game, Bijan Robinson, and the offensive line you have. And so I think that one of the things I love about Matt, which I'm sure we'll get into, one of the things I love about Matt Ryan being at the top is now there's not a blurry vision. Now it is, this team is going to be Matt's. And now Matt gets to select what that identity is. And now you get to build that identity. And it's not this coach drafting for his system or this GM trading draft picks because his job is on the line. Now all of a sudden the vision becomes Matt Ryan's vision, and he can kind of pull strings and puppet strings where he wants to. So that's my hope anyways. I don't think any of us know exactly how it's going to play out with Matt at the helm of this thing. But my hope is that he can just bring a central focus to what we want to be as a team and continue to select pieces and players that fit that vision, no matter who the GM is or who the head coach is or who the offensive coordinator is.
Anybody want to follow up with that?
Well, I would agree with a lot that he just said. Just say we have been someone that has switched coordinators, especially defense coordinators over the last few years. And, we talk about what you're going to run a 3-4 or 4-3. You draft those defensive, outside linebacker, defensive end type people that are going to, be your pass rusher. But if they don't fit the scheme, it's not you're not gonna mesh in good with the defense coordinator. So what he just said make a lot of sense to me, that you got to have a line vision, and just say you do got to change. You need to bring somebody in to fit the personnel, and not just try to come in and force their system on players that don't match into that system. So that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Headed to the comment section real quick. My guy Silk Legacy with the first comment tonight. So what's up, fam? Yeet, get some. Silk Legacy. Appreciate the comment, brother. Hit that like button. JKid_CEO Falcons fan. What's good? Hashtag rise up. Rise all the way up, brother. Appreciate you tuning in tonight. Miss April Thomas said, what's up, everyone? Silk Legacy says, if the Seahawks lose, Clint is our head coach, and if 49ers lose, Robert is our head coach. They will announce on Sunday. That was sort of the next topic, but there's one more thing I want to ask Mike before we head into the head coaching candidate tree, whatever you want to call it, the route that the Falcons could take here in Atlanta. Mike, you were speaking on Matt Ryan and the new position as he is president of football in Atlanta now. Matt Ryan signing once again with the Atlanta Falcons. The identity was a question that I had for you as, you're around the media a lot more than I am, but from what I partake of it, like as of now, Matt Ryan's only duties that, they said would be a day-to-day thing that they would figure out as they go throughout the process. Right now is to hire a head coach and a offensive coordinator, or not offensive coordinator, head coach and GM. So my question, what do you think that the Atlanta Falcons can find a true, definite GM that will answer to a former player in the NFL with Matt Ryan obviously having a high stature in Atlanta? Do you think you could find a GM that's willing to work and answer to a Matty Ice?
I think it's an excellent question, man. I mean, it's one that I've had all along. We had the conversation around John Harbaugh, which, like you said, we'll get into head coaching candidates in a minute. But I think that having Matt Ryan in a role, and don't get me wrong, Matt Ryan is highly thought of in NFL circles. I mean, you can see the way he interacted even on the set of CBS. You can see the way he's interacted with people. If Matt Ryan calls you, no matter who you are, you're going to answer the phone, right? And I think that's what happened with John Harbaugh. It's like, I'm going to talk to Matt Ryan. I'm going to take this call. I'm going to listen to what he has to say. But I almost wondered when all of this was kind of spinning and, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Matt would be hired as the president of football. I wondered if they had it backwards. I really did. I thought, okay, if you want Matt to build a vision for this team, is it not the right way to go about it to maybe hire him as a GM and then lure away a sitting GM from another team? Let's just throw out Les Snead, because Les Snead was on staff when I was with the Falcons. Hire a Les Snead away from the Rams and make him the president of football here in Atlanta. I think it's a valid question. I think what Matt is going to have to talk about in these conversations with these GM candidates is, I'm going to step away. Like, they're going to have to really define the role of what the GM is going to do. Yeah. And in my opinion, what it's going to look like is Matt is going to play more of a tiebreaker between GM and head coach. I think it'll be Matt, and then I think you'll have GM and head coach kind of on the same page within the franchise. And then when you get to, say, draft time or free agency or some of the other big decisions you have to make, they bring that to Matt and say, well, I want this guy and he wants that guy. What do you think? And Matt will align that hopefully with the vision of what he wants this football team to be. If you want to be a power run football team, then, Matt's going to look at it and go, hey, we probably don't need to play with 295-pound guards, right? I'm going to side with this guy or that guy. So I think there's a reason that, aside from the timing, that all the head coaching candidates are being interviewed first, because I do think that GM role is going to be very unique in what they're being asked to do in this building as opposed to the rest of the buildings in the NFL. So I think they really have to do a good job of defining what the GM's role is going to be here. And I think it's going to be heavy scouting. I think it is going to be, 80% of the decision-making on draft day. But I do think that Matt is going to have his hand in a lot of this. And I think it's probably the right way to go about it. But it's going to take a certain type of personality to want to take on that role within that building with Matt kind of looking over their shoulder.
Quick question. If just say, I think another one that they interviewed for the position, just call the name Mike Disner. If they hired him in that role, it's not Matt Ryan that's, been a figure in Atlanta football that's, a strong following within the fan base. Do we get the same pushback about the position of president of football if it wasn't, quote unquote, Matt Ryan?
Man, I think so, right? I think that you would have I think that if they had hired anybody other than Matt Ryan, me personally, now I don't know how y'all feel, but I do hear from the fan base a lot. I think that I almost felt like this hire was comfortable because it was almost like, in a way, you're replacing Rich McKay. So it was almost like they were like, "Hey man, y'all can't hate on this." Like we're replacing Rich, and usually if we'd have straight up said, "Hey, we're replacing Rich McKay with some other executive from some other team," there would have been some pushback, and there would have been some people going, "I'm glad Rich is gone, but who is this guy?" And I think there's a lot of to me, what they did in this is they split what Rich McKay's old job was, and they gave half of it to Greg Beatles, who is the CEO, and half of it to Matt Ryan. And Matt's going to be solely football, and Greg is going to be overseeing everything that's not football on field related. So, yeah, I mean, I would be lying if I said I don't think there's some kind of PR perspective to this from Arthur Blank. I think he's so tired of hearing about Rich McKay that it's like, you know what, let's get somebody that's going to be good at a minimal level into this role, and let's get somebody whose pushback is going to be a minimal level. And, let's just bring Matt Ryan in here to try to see if he can pull this thing through.
Yeah, one more question following up to the Matt situation. He spoke about bringing former players back to Atlanta to have those guys on the sideline, speaking of what it did for the fans, and not only fans, but players on the field. Could you maybe elaborate maybe a little, being a former Falcon? Like, what does that mean to have those previous stars back in Atlanta on the sideline with your players and coaches?
Well, man, look, I think that, and we've actually seen a bunch of them because, like it or not, 9 years ago, you saw the end, or maybe 8 years ago, you saw the end of the Falcons' kind of golden age, right?
Yep.
I mean, so you've started to see Roddy White, Ring of Honor, right? Tom McClure, who I talked to yesterday, Ring of Honor. Matt Ryan, Ring of Honor. Even Arthur Blank, Ring of Honor. I mean, so you've started to see us start to look back a little bit at the Falcons' golden age, which really was Matt Ryan's rookie year all the way up until and past the Super Bowl loss, right? That kind of 8-year span right there, 9-year span. So I just think that I think that having guys like Julio Jones around, I think that you've kind of lost contact with him, and having Matt Ryan in this role, bringing Roddy White back to talk to players and be a part of this thing, I think it just works in some places. And, talking to Tom McClure yesterday and kind of chopping up with him, hearing how giddy he was, how excited he was, and how much he's talked to Arthur over the last few days, or Matt Ryan or whoever else, and, wondering how you can get involved, and seeing these guys go on, the trips to Germany. There's a number of, Ring of Honor kind of guys going on these trips and doing all these kind of really cool things within this organization. I think it just gives you a level of comfortability because that those guys know what winning football looks like. And in the last 8 seasons, we have completely veered away from what that winning tradition was. And I just think that for myself, knowing a lot of the guys back from that, I got obviously lucky enough to play right in the middle of that, with the Falcons. I think it's a great thing. I think Matt involving a lot of these guys, and I'm sure we'll start to get more of an idea what those roles are going to look like. But I think having some of these guys back on the sidelines, the Michael Turners, the OVA Mahaleys, Curtis Loftons, John Abrahams, I mean, having those guys back, guys, just saying those names makes me feel good, right? Just saying the name Tyson Claybo gives me the warm fuzzies. So I think that a lot of Falcons fans probably feel the same way, and I think that it's important to kind of allow the newer generation of Falcons players to understand kind of what that heritage is a little bit.
Well, and I got a question for you, Mike, because you played with Matt, and even just from a fan standpoint, you could tell that Matt was just a leader, just a leader, period. So what do you think is going to make Matt, I think Matt said it best, he's sitting at the same table, his chair's just different. What do you think is going to make Matt successful in his new role as president of football?
I think that the one characteristic that Matt Ryan has more than being a good dude is his competitiveness. And look, man, I've had plenty of bar tabs with Matt Ryan, right? I mean, the guy first of all, he can drink beer with the best of them. It's very impressive, right? And he's also the kind of guy that's probably going to pick up the bar tab when you're done drinking your beer, which is awesome to kind of have in your corner. But make no mistake about it, man. Like when it comes to winning and losing, it don't matter who he's shared a beer with. It don't matter who he likes. It don't matter who likes him. It doesn't matter who he's friends with. You might get cussed out. You might, as a player, that's just how he was. It was cutthroat, man. If you're not doing your job, you're going to hear about it. And it's funny because you look back on his career and you guys see it all. You can see the snippets of get off our field and get set and all the small snippets from his career. The story that Todd McClure told yesterday about how he told all the veterans when he was a rookie to shut the F up in the huddle. And, it's just, you see snippets of that. And I got to live that every day. I got to see it every single day in the way he went about his business, whether he was leading a meeting, whether he was leading a huddle, whether he was leading, an OTA, whatever it may be. And I don't know that, he steps in and just automatically comfortable and this is a Super Bowl run next year. But I think he's going to leave no stone unturned to make sure this team is competitive as long as he's the president. And I know that that's what his personality is. And I know that's what he brings to the table. And I know that he knows what it looks like. So, there's a lot of good to take away from that. And I've been trying to caution people because you can't just snap your fingers and have a championship caliber team, but somebody that's willing to kind of grind and work at it and make sure that they are using all the resources available. That's who Matt Ryan is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Head to the comment section real quick. My guy, King Atlanta supporter, is in the chat with it. He says, can't wait to see what happens. He also says change is needed in Atlanta. Mark Smith says, I understand letting Rod go, but I don't completely understand Terry's departure. Mike, were you a bit surprised when the Atlanta Falcons made the decision to move from Terry, especially after what I would consider probably his best draft as an Atlanta Falcon GM?
So I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people in and out of the building, right? And the one thing that I've gathered about that decision, I think on its surface, it's a little bit shocking, right, to me, because I'm with you. I think you got a great draft class. I still, and we're going to hear about it a lot from people that don't understand it. I still think the decision to trade up and draft James Pierce was the right decision.
Yes,
right. I do. I mean, we're going to hear about it a lot, and there's going to be people from other teams that are going, "Oh, yeah, I don't have a first-round pick." Don't care. Not only did you draft a good player, but you developed him for a year before you got to next year's draft.
So on the professional level, yes.
Yes, on the professional level, 100%. Right. But what I've gathered is, and I think we've all seen this probably in our own professional settings, whatever you guys do for work, there are people that get the recognition, and there are people around the people that are getting the recognition that help, right? That are a big part of the conversation, that are a huge part of the process. And what I've gathered is there might have been more confidence in the pieces around Terry than there might have been in actually Terry Fontenot. And I think that there is, first of all, Kyle Smith is that kind of guy. We see Kyle Smith every, assistant GM or whatever his title is. You see him every year do like a press conference. There's a lot behind him that people think that he's the one that stood on the table for different draft picks or for different decisions. And Terry ultimately had to sign off on those. But I think when you're going to bring in a president of football, putting him over a guy like a Terry Fontenot would have been a very difficult decision to make. I think bringing in Matt and just saying, "Oh, hey, Terry, by the way, I know you made the last 5 draft classes, but you have a new boss to answer to now." I think that would have been tough. And I think the reason, like I said, that they felt comfortable moving on from Terry Fontenot was simply, we believe in the scouting department. We believe in the people around him. We believe in the process. And we think whoever that Matt wants to put in this role will probably have some level of success without Terry Fontenot in the building. So I was a little bit shocked, but like I said, some of the conversations I've had have kind of led me to that conclusion. And we've all been in work environments like that, right? Where you do a project and you submit it to the boss, and the boss is getting accolades because the boss is like, "Yeah, we did this great project." It's like, "Yeah, that was my project." But, nonetheless, you're the boss and you get the stuff for it. So I kind of got the gist of maybe that was a little bit how the Falcons felt about that role right now.
Yeah.
Well, and I think if you are going to realign the front office in the way that you did, you kind of had to wipe the slate, and just to get the tiers of leadership in place. Matt was pretty much, I know he's not the sole one responsible for trading him out of town, but he was the GM that traded him out of town. and now you're bringing him back to answer, to your former GM. And thinking about it more, that relationship, you would have a question of whether it would work or not. So that was enough to kind of let's wipe the slate clean.
Well, and I'll finish that's a great thought. And I'll finish with this. I was surprised at how quickly the decisions both happened with Raheem and Terry. Like, those were not decisions that came after the Saints game, right? Like, those decisions had been in place long before the 4-game winning streak at the end of the year. And that was more shocking to me, right? I mean, it was like, oh, well, you won 4 straight games. It says a lot about Raheem. Maybe they'll give him another shot. And then it's like, boom. I mean, before the night's out, it's like, all right, he's done. So I think that was more shock. I think the timing of the firings was more shocking than the actual firings. It was like, y'all didn't even give this man an exit interview to explain his strategy moving forward. You just were like, all right, we're done. Bye. So I think that they understood that from the time that they kind of had the thought process of the team, the president of football in place.
Well, and I've got a question for you too, Mike, kind of on that too. When we drafted Michael Penix, shocked everybody, and we kind of saw, I think everybody's seen that clip where Arthur Blank like immediately goes and grabs Terry and is like, you want to explain? It feels like he's like, hey, you want to explain this to me? Because we just got done signing Kirk Cousins to, $180 million deal. You want to explain this pick to me? And you can see Terry kind of explaining to him. And do you think that maybe I think Raw was kind of married to Zach Robinson. And I feel like maybe there was a conversation that it was like, hey, you need to let this guy go, like we did with the Jimmy Lake. And Raw was like, no, I'm riding with this guy. And that may have been what ultimately cost him his job, even after the 4-game win streak.
And do we actually think that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we actually think that pick is made without the owner signing off on it? I don't think that Penix comes to town if it wasn't a surprise to Arthur Blank that Penix was the pick. I just can't believe that.
No, and that's what I was about to say, David. I think that when you look at that entire situation, I think that that's one of those things you look at and you can't hear words, but you're like, I'm just going to fill in the blank because we're all shocked. But I'm with you. I don't think that pick ever happens. As a matter of fact, I don't think any first-round pick ever happens without Arthur knowing about it, point blank. I mean, I think that all the way down. I mean, I'll go all the way back to when I visited. When I was on my Falcons visit out to Flowery Branch when I was coming out of college, I was on the visit with Rolando McClain, who at the time was one of my college teammates. And Arthur was not in the building that day, but there was a very in-depth conversation between Rolando McClain that day and Mike Smith and Thomas Dimitroff, and I just happened to be in the room for it. And Rolando was like, where do I fit? How do I fit into what you guys want to do? Because they were kind of looking for a weak side linebacker. And it was very much like, if we're going to draft a first-round linebacker, they're going to have to play Will. I think Curtis Lofton was the Mike linebacker at the time. And Rolando McClain pretty much stopped paying attention to them at that moment. It was like, dude, I'm not going to be there at 16. I'm not playing Will. Like, this is, I don't even know. And the conversation kind of steered to what the entire organization was looking for in that one pick, right? And you just knew that Arthur had to have signed off on, hey, we need a Will linebacker in that moment. It blows my mind thinking back on that because I was there, and another draft pick we had that year was Shan Schillinger out of Montana. He was in the building too. And Rolando, I think, ended up going like 6th or 7th overall to the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, and had his own issues and was out of the NFL. But we drafted Sean Weatherspoon with that pick, and that was a Will linebacker. Like, that's exactly what they decided they were going to do from the moment go. So it was a very clear plan for them. So I'm with you on that. I don't think that happens without without Arthur's approval, from the word jump. I just think it's one of those things that they probably converse with him about, and he understands, and probably was very honestly, Arthur was probably very excited about it because he was tired of not having a quarterback in the building over the last couple of years with Mariota and Ritter and everything else that gone on.
Don't forget Heineke. Falcon fans, hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe if you're new to the channel. April, we're coming right to you with your question, but before we do so, David, could you give me the rundown of all the completed interviews that the Atlanta Falcons have shared with the media?
Unless some didn't pull up, we got, of course, John Harbaugh, Jeff Hafley, defense coordinator from the Packers, Jesse Minter, defense coordinator for the Chargers. Antonio Pierce, former head coach of the Raiders. Antonio Weaver, Dolphins defense coordinator. Clint Kubiak, Seattle's offense coordinator. Aiden Dirty, Seattle Seahawks defensive coordinator. And Kevin Stefanski, former Browns coach.
Yep. So April, Mike, yeah, I mean, we could talk about who they all interviewed, but the chat has a question for you, so we'll get to the chat here first. It says, Mike Johnson, who do you think the Atlanta Falcons head coach and OC will be in Atlanta?
Well, I have been rallying around Clint Kubiak, and I don't even know if it's Clint Kubiak or the thought of Clint Kubiak. And I've watched a lot of tape of Clint Kubiak's offense over the last couple of days, and it was actually shocking to me. I don't know if y'all followed this, but the Steelers requested an interview with Clint's brother Clay, who's the OC for San Francisco. I kind of thought that was mind-blowing because Clay has just kind of been a back burner to me. I'm like, that's great. I was such a huge fan when I was playing of Gary Kubiak's offenses out of Houston when he had Arian Foster and Dwayne Brown was their left tackle, and they made things so much easier on an offensive line with the way they played. Matt Schaub and that group they had down there. I'm a huge fan of the thought of Clint Kubiak, and I will stand on the table and scream it from the rooftops. I think there are so many good defensive coordinators that could make for good head coaches. I just don't want them, right? I want an offensive play caller as the head coach, point blank, period. Now, I've been screaming for Clint Kubiak. News came out today that they're going to interview Joe Brady. Yeah, that one could be an intriguing prospect to me. Joe Brady's known more as a passing game guy than a run game guy.
This is like
so I would have to see.
This is like his third interview in Atlanta, correct?
Yeah. Yep. And he's been around a while. I mean, he was with Carolina. Everybody knows he was with LSU for a little bit. He's kind of been around the block. And I think the reason he hasn't gotten a head coaching job yet, Joe Brady, is because there's a lot of questions about what he wants to do with the run game. Yeah. That's neither here nor there. I think that Clint Kubiak if I was hiring, Clint Kubiak would have the job, right? And I just think that his demeanor. Now, you're going to look at him. If he does get the job, and mark my word right now, if Clint Kubiak gets the head coaching job and has to hold a press conference, you're going to get done with the press conference and be like, guy, what is he talking about? That was not good. Like, he is not going to win the press conference. He is very dry. It looks a lot like Kyle Shanahan when he talks. There's not a lot of information, a lot of short sentences. But I go back to my own time, right? And I go back to the golden years of Falcons football when you had Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had Mike Smith and Mike Mularkey when he got to the NFL, right? Mike Mularkey leaves after 4 years, I believe. Dirk Cutter comes in, and we had a good year, but eventually that fell off, right? Mike Smith gets fired. Then you hire Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn has Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur and all this other stuff. Well, then Kyle Shanahan leaves, right? And then it kind of tapers off and couldn't get things going under Sarkisian, and then it's like, okay, you're out. I don't want that anymore. Mm-hmm. We had an interview on 92.9 the other day where it was like, well, there's just not Kyle Shanahan growing on the trees. There's not just Sean. You can't just go find Sean McVay. Guys, I don't care. I'm going to be greedy. I want Sean McVay. I want Kyle Shanahan. I want Andy Reid. Kudos to Mike Vrabel, but Mike Vrabel has Josh McDaniel. Yeah. One of the big reasons I see between D'Amico Ryans and Raheem Morris, one of the big differences is, what did D'Amico Ryans do? He went and fired Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans after 1 year of bad football. Bobby Slowick was almost the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. And then 1 year later, D'Amico Ryans fires him. I don't want the ups and downs with the offensive coordinator with a defensive head coach. I want an offensive head coach that can get the quarterback position right, and then we can have a decade of that relationship here, the way you see some other places with their quarterback head coaching combination. I don't want to say who's replacing the offensive coordinator, who's going to be the play caller, who's going to do this. I think that if you get a Clint Kubiak in and you can retain Jeff Ulbrich as the DC, and then you can get another guy to kind of build up as the offensive coordinator position, much in the way that Clay is out in San Francisco, then that's the route I want to take. So as of now, to answer April's question, that's the route I would want to go if I were making the hires. I think that from Clint Kubiak, I go down and I get to Joe Brady and, some of the other names thrown around. But, guys, you just read the list. Robert Saleh, great coach, right? But he's on his second job. Brian Flores, great defensive coordinator, on his second job. You go, there's the league is just full of people like that where it's like, oh, man, great coach, didn't work out as a head coach. Anthony Weaver, great defensive coordinator, didn't work out as a head coach. So I don't want to go that route where we get a defensive coordinator in here and he has to hire somebody that's going to develop Michael Penix, and then he develops Michael Penix for a year or two, and then he leaves. I want that from the top down, that linear vision of an offensive head coach. And I hope it's Clint. Like I said, if it's not, maybe there's a Joe Brady, maybe there's some other route that I'm not even thinking of. Maybe it's a Mike LaFleur or something along those lines, but we'll see. Does
a Kevin Stefanski, does that light a light bulb when you hear that name? Is that like a intriguing hire? Because, I believe Atlanta Falcon fans, I'm not speaking for myself, but a lot of Atlanta Falcon fans would be pretty upset about a Stefanski hire after the names of Clint Kubiak, the Joe Brady's, the Mike McDaniels. Is Stefanski a big signing if you land him here in Atlanta? Because it was rumored that it was either John Harbaugh or Stefanski was the two top candidates that teams should be looking for.
I think that, and you guys tell me, I think the biggest question mark around this team is the quarterback position right now, right? I think you've got players at a lot of different spots. I don't know what the health of Michael Penix will be in week 1 next year. As a matter of fact, I would gamble on him not taking the first snap of the season and not playing until October. That's what my gamble would be, because you're going to have a different coordinator and different scheme, and somebody else is going to have to take the snaps through OTAs and all that stuff. I don't look at Stefanski and think, oh, man, you got the quarterback position right in Cleveland. He just didn't. You went through 7 guys in the course of the 5 years or 6 years that he had that job up there, or however many it was. And now, granted, he did some good things with a Flacco, did some good things with some less than stellar quarterbacks, but he never solved the issue, right? They never got it right. And I think that my worry if Kevin Stefanski was to get this job would be to look at it and go, I don't know if he'll get it right. I think the difference is I look at a Clint Kubiak and I go, man, you really made Sam Darnold look good. You made him look like an all-pro in your time as his offensive coordinator. And I don't know that anybody thought about him after last year, the 2 games he played at the end of the season like that. So that would be my biggest question. If Stefanski was hired and Matt believed in that decision, okay, good. But I think first and foremost on his docket would be to solve the quarterback position and to figure out what you had in Michael Penix, figure out who your bridge quarterback would be this offseason, and how you're going to build from there. And I just don't know that I have that trust in him right now to get that job done.
Well, and in that situation, Mike, because that is our problem right now. I agree with you, that the quarterback situation isn't great. Who do you think's taking snap, or who would you, if you're sitting in Matt Ryan's seat or, coach's seat, who do you bring in to bridge that until we can get Michael Penix back? Because it sounds like Kirk's on his way out.
Yeah. No, yeah, Kirk's on his way out. It's funny, man, because we did a segment a couple days ago, and in our station posts 60-second clips to the Twitter page, right? And I was asked the question, Dante Moore opted to go back to Oregon. It was like, what does it mean that Dante Moore is going back to Oregon? It's kind of brought up as a general NIL conversation. And I was like, honestly, my biggest takeaway is if Dante Moore's coming out, you could almost have penciled him in and he'd be the starting quarterback for the Jets next year. Mm-hmm. Instead, the Jets are going to be looking for a bridge quarterback to get to their next guy, or they're going to draft him in the first round, whatever it may be. So to me, that was one quarterback that was taken off the board. Well, the clip that was posted on social media was me talking about Malik Willis. And, a lot of people, Malik Willis from Roswell or wherever else he was, out in the Atlanta area. And it's like, oh, we should bring in Malik Willis. Malik Willis is going to get $40 million next year to play quarterback somewhere. It's going to be, to me, it's going to be a 2-year, $40 million contract guaranteed for Malik Willis. We're not going to pay that money for Malik Willis. Not with Michael Penix waiting in the wings and rehabbing from an injury. So, I think you have to bring up some of the names that probably people don't want to hear. because whoever you're going to bring in is going to probably come in under the understanding that they're not going to be the starting quarterback in the middle of the season for the Falcons. It's more of like, hey, can you get us through training camp and start 4 games until Michael Penix is healthy? So I brought this name up a few times. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo, who's going to be a free agent. I know that's not sexy. God, it just makes me sick even saying it out loud, guys, I promise you. But you have to find somebody that's going to be a free agent that can run the system and that doesn't mind being a backup long term. Malik Willis ain't going to sign somewhere to be a backup right now. He's too hot of a candidate. Maybe I think Trey Lance is going to be a free agent this offseason. Maybe there's a Trey Lance situation where you look at him. But, I've had a lot of people bring up Jameis Winston. I don't know. I really don't. It's going to have to be somebody very comfortable with coming in as I'm going to be the backup eventually, but I might get a couple of starts to start my time here. I just don't know who that is. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is still under contract. I know that there's Georgia fans. God, I hear you, man. Stetson Bennett has been brought up to me probably a million times.
Yeah.
I'm good on that personally. I'm not a Georgia fan. You guys know I didn't go to Georgia. I'm solid. I mean, it is what it is with him, but I don't know, man. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts, honestly, because I do think that if Kirk were to be on the roster on March 14th this year, my understanding is that we would owe him $70 million.
Can't happen.
Don't think that that's going to happen, man. So we're going to have to find somebody that can, at least, if nothing else, we have to find somebody that can lead this offense through OTAs during the installation of a new offense with a new offensive coordinator. And who is that going to be? I truly do not know at this point.
That's a very good question.
How about Marcus Mariota?
No,
Sheesh.
God, no.
I was going to say the name Mac Jones.
And that's an intriguing one. Now, Mac's under contract. That's a lot. Jacoby Brissett one. I think they were both on 2-year deals, and so you'd have to trade for Mac Jones. I think that if we had all 7 picks this draft, maybe that's a conversation. Yeah. But for me, only having 5 draft picks, that kind of becomes a non-starter. So I truthfully, I think if Mac were going to do that, and of course, he can't say where he's going to be traded to for the compensation, but I think Matt would probably prefer to be somewhere where he has a chance to be the starting quarterback and not back in the same situation he's in San Francisco right now. So, like I said, it's going to take a certain mindset of a veteran, almost a Joe Flacco-like guy who looks at it and goes, I know I'm going to be the backup in the long run, but let me start a few games here or at least lead this team through the offseason. But there's Mac Jones is – I would love it. I'd sign on to having Mac Jones here. We saw what he did against us, but I'm not sure I'm giving up a draft pick for Mac Jones either.
Yeah.
Robert,
ain't real long.
Robert, you had a question you was going to ask a minute ago. I believe you was going to speak up.
Yeah, kind of backtracking about the Kevin Stefanski situation. Mike, you talked about, with Matt coming on board, that the team is going to have a clear vision of, what the identity is going to be. Do you think that a lot of Stefanski's mismanagement of the quarterback situation in Cleveland had to do with the front office, just meddling? Because, his first year, he had Baker Mayfield, and Baker balled out that year. And they go into Pittsburgh and win a playoff game. And then all of a sudden, they pull the plug on Baker and they bring in a Deshaun Watson, and just all the chemistry was just ruined after that. Do you think that, Stefanski or another coach would thrive here with the clear vision that Matt's going to bring to the team?
Good question.
Well, I think there's a greater than average chance that that's probably the case, right? I think you have to give them the Cleveland benefit of the doubt. I think you have to give any quarterback or head coach that leaves Cleveland, you have to give them a little bit of leeway, right? You're like, maybe he's not as bad as he looked in Cleveland. So I for sure think that's going to be part of the conversation. I do think that I don't know that his style, or at least the style that he showed, really fits what we have right now personnel-wise. I think he runs more of a bully style of run game than, we're more finesse blockers at this point. But, who knows? I I think my bigger, wider question when it comes to some of those topics is if Matt is going to develop the clear vision and you were to hire a Kevin Stefanski, would a Kevin Stefanski tell you to move on from a Chris Lindstrom, right? Would you say, man, we have, and this is how I feel. I love Chris Lindstrom. I think he's very good at what we do, but we can't have the highest paid right guard in the NFL and we can't run behind them on short yardage.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like if you get Kevin Stefanski hired, is Kevin Stefanski going to look at it and go, dude, I can't do what I want to do here, but I don't think I'm the only one. I think that y'all have got some issues. You know, I think that Chris Lindstrom's very good at wide zone, but the guy weighs, you know, probably not even 300 pounds at this point in his career. And it just kind of is what it is. So I think on a broader spectrum, and when the Stefanski stuff comes up, I almost think you're working in reverse. I think Kubiak could probably work with Chris Lindstrom and Jake Matthews and Matthew Bergeron. I don't know that Stefanski could, and I think you're looking at more of a revisioning in that kind of role if it is a Stefanski's type hire of him saying, man, I got to find a speedier wide receiver, a short burst wide receiver. You know, Kyle Pitts is not part of this. I need more of a power tight end. And so I think that you probably – if Stefanski were to be hired, I think you're looking at a little bit more of a rougher bump to lead his tenure, start his tenure.
Yeah. Exactly. That goes to what we were saying earlier. You bringing in, you got to look at what the personnel is and kind of, fit the coach into what the personnel is. Like you just made a good point there. You know, you're going from a finesse blocking scheme to Stefanski, who wants to go a power scheme. So it has to be somebody who's going to pretty much run a spread, a wide zone system, and I think that Kubiak, like you said, would probably be the best, fit. And then he brings in a offensive coordinator by name that could be that mentor to Michael Penix that he said that he didn't really have, on staff next year, nobody to lean on. So they can have a real good development there, quarterback coaches, ish. Offense coordinator, because we know that Kubiak is going to call his own plays. So what is going to be the role for that offense coordinator?
And I think that part of Matt's thought process over this week, next week, whenever it is we hire a head coach, I think that it has to be how close are we, right? Because I think and Dan Orlovsky's gone on record a couple of times. He's like, man, they've got a lot of weapons. They're really close. Like I think you can win sooner than later with the Atlanta Falcons. But I think you have to have that conversation of what we talked about the vision. We talked about the kind of linear vision for the team from the top down. What is the vision? If your vision is a power football team and a bully football team, then you better go out and find some 330-pound offensive guards, right? Or you're not going to be that team. And we don't have that. So I look at a lot at the New York Jets. The New York Jets had this vision, but I don't know if they hired Aaron Glenn thinking we're close. And I think that when they got to the middle of the season, what'd they do? They traded Quentin Williams. They traded Sauce Gardner. They traded all these pieces, and they go, we're not close, dude. Like, we've got to tear this thing down to the studs and start to rebuild it with what our vision is. Do you hire the coach based on what you have, or do you hire a coach with a vision and allow him to mold the team into what he thinks is going to be successful? I think that's going to be one of the more intriguing storylines over the next week or two.
Yeah, as a fan and looking at the roster that we have, if they come in with the mindset, okay, we got to strip this thing down to the studs, I'll be very disappointed because, looking at this roster, I think that we have a roster that can compete with, pretty much any team in the league, from skilled players to what we've done on defense. Of course, we don't need to be complacent and stand still. We need to make some strides and bring some free agents and some draft picks that's going to improve the team. But, if they come in with the mentality that we got to strip it down to the stud, I personally, as a lifelong Falcon fan, would be very, very disappointed.
Let me ask you guys a couple questions now. I'm gonna use y'all as a resource. I'm genuinely curious. Kyle Pitts gonna be a free agent. How many of y'all want Kyle Pitts back and want to re-sign him with the Atlanta Falcons? And let's just say he makes, top 5 tight end money.
Jeez.
Do y'all want him back as part of the Atlanta Falcons?
The contract's got to be right. I think Kyle Pitts has been through a lot throughout his career as well, with the different changing of coaches. He's had so many different quarterbacks that he's played with. And a lot of people use that as an excuse, but I think you've seen what Kyle Pitts was able to do when he was called upon. I think a lot of Kyle Pitts' situation has been that Zach Robinson couldn't run an offense with that many superstars on that side of the ball. I think the offense stalled when they tried to get the ball to Pitts. You know, there were games that Pitts would be wide open, and Penix just simply didn't read that Kyle Pitts was open. So, I mean, I think Penix can get you that high quality play that he should at that type of draft pick or that spot of a draft pick. And, you know, his best year was ultimately with Matt Ryan. So I think that, you know, if anybody best could figure out how to unlock Kyle Pitts, that would be Matt Ryan.
And short answer, yes. I think, you know, he is one of the, you know, top 5 tight ends in the league. You know, with the, you know, he has, like saying, best year with Matt Ryan. Went through a lull in, you know, a couple of the middle years of his career with injury and I think subpar quarterback play. And I think last year, you know, he did have a revitalization of his career with, you know, Penix and Kirk Cousins throwing to him. So I think that, you know, the potential is there. And I think that, you know, I think he's finally healthy. And I think that, you know, it would serve us well to sign him.
I want to pass that to Cody because me and Cody has went after about this topic all season long, and Cody is highly against re-signing.
Bring it on, Cody.
Okay. To be fair, I do have a love-hate relationship with Kyle Pitts.
I do too.
I really do. I want him to succeed because he puts on a Falcon uniform, and I don't care if I don't know who you are. If you've got the Falcon helmet on and you've got the jersey, I want you to succeed, period. So I'm not trying to hate on Kyle at all. My problem with Kyle Pitts is I see too much quit sometimes in Kyle Pitts, and it drives me nuts. I played football for 10 years, obviously not to the level that Mike did, but that's something that just drives me nuts as a former player, is seeing a guy that just, you know, because I'm so already frustrated talking about it. He's got so much talent, dude. He's got so much talent to be this unicorn player that he was in Florida. He does. I've seen it. You saw it all this year. You know, Kyle Pitts showed up huge this year. He did. In big moments, Kyle Pitts showed up. But there are too many times that Kyle Pitts does not show up for this team. And I either say him because it's lazy, he can't block worth the darn. I want Kyle to succeed. I do. Do I want him back in a Falcon uniform for a ton of money? Absolutely not. To me, he is not worth top 5 tight end money. To me, you can get that kind of production out of a Charlie Warner. I think Charlie Warner is a great tight end. I'd rather see Charlie Warner in this offense. I think we underused Charlie Warner this year. You know what? Finally got 3 catches. Like game 4 was like his first catches.
Yeah.
And again, I don't hate Kyle. I really don't. To me, for what I was sold that he was, I've not seen that unless he was playing with Matt Ryan. Well, unfortunately, Matt Ryan is not playing. As much as I wish we could clone Matt and stick Matt back out there, or, you know, even my hope is I know we need a bridge quarterback. If, you know, Mike, you know Matt, talk to him. Please give us 4 games, Matt. Just 4 games, and then you can go back to your front office and all that. I know he talked about his arm being, you know, throwing with, you know, Matt Stafford, and afterwards he's just like, yeah, my arm's done. I'm done. Give us 4, Matt. But to me, if you move on from Kyle Pitts, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think you're gonna have to tag him, or you're gonna have to do something like that to keep him around. But right. I hate the amount of money that we're going to pay him. So again, it's so frustrating for me because again, I want him to succeed, and I know he can be a great player. I've seen it. We've seen it. We've seen him make, you know, in that game against Washington. You know, last year, Michael Penix hits him, and it ties up the game. It sends us to overtime. But it's like, where is that all season long? Why is it, you know, on tight end day or, you know, tight end week? And then, you know, then you don't hear from him for 3 weeks. And then you hear from him and he goes off and he, you know, puts up stupid numbers. And then he disappears for 2 weeks. It's maddening. It is incredible.
Can I pass the same question down to you, Mike? It was your question, but can we pass it back to you? What is your thoughts on a re-signing of Kyle Pitts?
I'm pretty much along the lines of Cody. I think that there's so much upside, but so many times, and of course, I try to open my mind because I am an offensive lineman at heart, right? You don't get the recognition. There is and as a matter of fact, I'll say the same thing. I have actually said this on the air about Jake Matthews. I know Jake Matthews is Falcons royalty. I played with Jake Matthews. I was, still playing when Jake was a rookie, which is crazy, right? But there seems to be with Kyle and maybe a couple other guys like a Jake, an indifference at times, right? It's just like, I feel like both those guys, maybe a couple of others, finish games where it's like, I don't even think his jersey's dirty. It's like, did you even fall on the ground today? Did you give that last 10% that is necessary to go win football games? And, I think there's a lot of upside, like you said, and you can go get it in the passing game. But as a tight end, especially, and it's not his fault that he was drafted 4th overall, right? But if you're a unicorn of a tight end, you have to be a mismatch at least a little bit in blocking. And I don't think he's ever been a mismatch blocking anybody, DB, corner, outside, nobody. So he's frustrating. I also am concerned that his best years were his rookie year and his contract year. The meat of the sandwich right there doesn't tend to check out. So we'll see. I mean, that ultimately is going to be up to me. I mean, up to whoever the new coordinator or head coach is to what, whether or not they can utilize him. But I'll just say I wouldn't shed a tear if they passed on him, but I wouldn't punch a hole in the wall if they signed him back. So I'm kind of in the middle on that. I don't know.
Well, I just seen a comment a minute ago, and this is what's got me to thinking is, he looked great down the stretch. And, to your point, Chase, it all depends on the contract. But, for him to really pick up and put up those insane numbers, especially at the end of a contract year, I mean, is he thinking along the lines that Julio Jones did his last year? I'm going to go out and ball out and hopefully somebody's watching, and I'm just hoping that, the previous head coach GM regime hasn't left a sour taste in the kid's mouth. But, I'm with you guys. I mean, if he stays, great. If not, no sleep lost.
So, well, and the other thing with Kyle Pitts, like if you're telling me that we sign up Kyle Pitts, but it means we lose like a Caden Ellis, bye, Kyle.
Then you make the decision.
You better bring back Caden Ellis. I would say that
leadership on defense.
Yes,
that, like you said, I mean, you don't measure heart at the scouting combine.
No,
Caden Ellis is that heart of the defense.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about this comment from Steve Martinez? Appreciate the comment, Steve. He says Kubiak comes, just know Kirk is staying.
I mean, no way Kirk is in Atlanta next year. Yes.
You just can't afford him. We wouldn't even be having the conversation about Kyle Pitts if Kirk was going to be the quarterback. You can't pay him, right? And it's like I said. I mean, I don't know the exact amount, but my understanding is, like I said earlier, if Kirk is on the roster on March 14th, you're going to owe him almost $70 million next year. And I don't know how that's possible. I think it's Kirk, and I think he's good, but Kirk is to me, he is ranked somewhere between 15 and 20 in the NFL of quarterbacks. And I think Arthur actually said in his press conference that the greatest enemy of great is good. And I think Kirk is good. I don't know that there's any road to Kirk suddenly becoming great at age 38 or whatever he's going to be, making $70 million. I don't think I'd be able to stomach that. I honestly would just rather have a Garoppolo at that point, knowing we're paying a fraction of what it would cost.
Yeah, absolutely. One player I wanted to ask you about, and we'll get ready to close the show out. We're almost at our hour mark. The player that a lot of Atlanta Falcons say was very underused throughout his whole year in Atlanta, other than his rookie season, Tyler Algier. The numbers hit this week of an estimated cost. David had those numbers. I'd have to go back and look. But, Mike, your thoughts about Tyler Algier? Is there any possibility that we see 25 back in Atlanta next season, or was against the Saints the last time we watched Tyler Algier in a Falcons jersey?
What was the estimate? You don't remember what the estimated cost was? What was the ballpark? I'm curious what it was.
I think it was
2.5.
Yeah, I think it was 2.5.
Yeah, there's no way you let him go for that.
No, God, no. Oh, 100%. You got to bring him back at 2.5. I would be curious to know how hungry he is for an actual starting role.
Yeah.
I think there's this misnomer that, I think it's different at running back. I think if you're the guy backing up Bijan, I think you're like, man, if my money is even in the ballpark, I'd rather take a backup role as a running back. It's not the same as quarterback. Like quarterback's going to go try to get starting quarterback money and be the guy. Algier, if you're at 2.5, bro, go ahead and sign me up for about 10 more years of that. I can take all that 2.5 you want to. That's a throwaway number for me. I mean, I would be shocked if we even got close with 2.5, but it is the running back. It is the unique situation, but man, I love the guy. I love the style he runs with. I've made the comment, and people disagree with me. I think he's actually better at running wide zone than Bijan is. I think Bijan makes people miss in the backfield. It can cut back and it can accelerate through the screen game, all that other stuff. But as far as actually running the X's and O's and the timing of wide zone, I think Tyler's actually better at it. I think he fits that style better. So, yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of Tyler Algier.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to hear this market value, $2.6 million is estimated market value.
Got to resign.
Well, and do you think, Mike, because it seems, I mean, it doesn't seem, you can tell that Tyler and Bijan have, I mean, obviously they're brothers. I mean, that's one thing football does. It brings you together, and it's that bond. Do you think possibly the relationship that he has with Bijan would be a good reason for Tyler to stick around, even if he does? Because to me, Tyler Algier, you put him on any team, he starts. He just does. I think he's that good. He's just a great player. He's what I wish Kyle Pitts would be like. Not to throw Kyle under the bus one more time, but but do you think that maybe that relationship with Bijan kind of sways him to stay here in Atlanta, even if he has higher aspirations to start?
I think it would be. I think the conversation like that of things that would kind of pull on him would be more of what style of offense we're running, right? I think that it's a great thing to have, a brotherhood between those guys and to have this understanding and, this work and, this whole bond. But I think Tyler, if anything, needs to be very particular about where he goes, because I'll push back a little bit. I don't know that Tyler's a starting running back anywhere. I think he's very much a starting running back and a Kubiak, a Shanahan. I don't think he fits like Chicago this year. Like, I don't think he's like Monangai. I don't think he's like a Jalen Warren for Pittsburgh. I don't know that he would fit in Houston, but he understands. I think I told you guys this last time. I was high school teammates with Alfred Morris, who played under Mike Shanahan in Washington, multi-time Pro Bowler. Alfred Morris was never going to work in any other scheme. That's why he went in the 5th or 6th round. Terrell Davis is the same way. Like, those guys fit knowing the timing and having the vision of some of the schemes they play in. So I think that would pull more on my heartstrings if I was Tyler, of making sure that where I was going fit what I was good at, as opposed to the relationships I have in Atlanta. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's Kubiak, he finds a nice balance between Charbonnet and, I think I say his name right, and Kenneth Walker.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I think if it is Kubiak, he has a 2-back system that pretty much works down in.
And I'll follow that up, guys. Ryan Grubb, who's the offensive coordinator for Alabama, y'all know I pay close attention, was the offensive coordinator last year in Seattle for the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. Neither one of those guys really fit what Ryan Grubb wanted to do in the run game for Seattle last year. And all of a sudden, Clint Kubiak's there, and they have this 2-headed monster scheme where everything's kind of working. It's a prime example. Like, you have to find kind of where you are in terms of acceleration, in terms of vision, in terms of physical ability, and find something that matches up with that. Now, luckily, those guys in Seattle have done that. And if Clint Kubiak were to come here, I would expect that we would sign Tyler Algier back, specifically if it was $2.6 million. I'm in on that all day.
Absolutely. Mark Smith says he is not on this team for his blocking. Charlie is the blocker. A lot of Falcon fans agreeing that Tyler, I haven't seen one comment that said Tyler shouldn't be in Atlanta next season. I want to give a shout out real quick to all the comments in the comment section. If I skip past your comment, I'll be sure to go back and watch the live and get back with you in the comment section. Mike, we appreciate your time here. It is your third appearance on the show, man. We appreciate you taking the time out of your night from your family to come on here and talk some more Falcon football after you do it all week long. So shout out to you for being here. And if you had anything you want to say to the Falcon fans as we get ready to close the show and do our shout outs.
Look, I appreciate y'all, man. I as you can tell, I do this for a living, but I do it because it's fun, right? I mean, I love doing it. I love chopping it up. So even the ones who don't like what I say, man, I appreciate y'all. And look, let's go win a Super Bowl at some point. Let's get this thing done and all celebrate together.
Yes, sir.
Robert, coming over to you, brother. Shout out for tonight, huh?
Always an honor and a privilege to have you on here. And like you said, let's go win a Super Bowl because I'm running out of next year's. I'm getting but yeah, shout out to you guys for letting me be a part of this. You know, it means so much to me. It's always a pleasure to come on here and talk Falcon football with you guys. Shout out to our viewers, our subscribers. Without you guys, this isn't possible. Just spread the word and, just have people come check us out.
And hashtag DFU so we can enter you in this raffle. We have 3 objects to give away here, Falcon content. So hashtag DFU. We got 10 entries right now. My bad, Robert.
Oh, you're fine, man. And just shout out to the good Lord above for another day, and shout out to my family, Brianna, Peyton, Zach, and Chris. All, and as always, rise up and get set.
I'll say one last question for you, Mike. I was saying this was brought up by one of our other co-hosts, Rick. I know some people are tired of Rise Up. I'm not one of those people. I like Rise Up. That's a great thing for me. But what do you think about changing it from Rise Up to Get Set?
I was in the building when they came up with the Rise Up thing. They actually presented it to us in a team meeting, and we were all like,
2014.
We were like, what is this? What is this for? A hashtag? Man, look, at this point, though, it's ingrained in me. I don't want to go back to Go Birds or anything like that, man. That's Billy. There's all kinds of stuff. I think Rise Up for me, it's the one. I'm good with it. But Get Set is pretty funny. I think I'd put that on a T-shirt and be fine with it.
I'll say that would be a good T-shirt. But, I guess for shout-outs, first things first, got to thank God he woke us up this morning. We got to do what, we all got to go to our jobs, got home safe. And we got to come talk Dirty Bird football. So, shout out to the big man upstairs. Shout out to you, Mike, constant professional. I love having you on. I would say it's just awesome. There's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but you're talking Falcon football with us. We're all passionate about it. And I was like you said, man, let's go get that Super Bowl. Mike, I'm going to come find you when we win that Super Bowl because I'm going to belong to the streets for a week when we win that Super Bowl. I'll say I've already got it planned out for work who I'm going to call out to, and just be like, hey, for a week, man, if you see me on Peachtree Street partying, leave me alone. I'll say, but yeah, definitely one before I die. It would be great. But so shout out to you, Mike. I appreciate it so much. Talking to you, it's always a pleasure. I love talking, I don't get a call into the radio because I'm normally driving when you're on and I'm listening to y'all. But always awesome to get to talk to you. Shout out to you guys, coming on, talking football. Yeah. Shout out to, people that come on and watch, man. I would say without y'all, there is no podcast to, talk to. So keep liking, subscribing. We're trying to get there. Hopefully, one day this is going to be the biggest official Atlanta Falcon football podcast. That's the goal. We're working our way to 1K, boys. But other than that, shout out to my wife who's out in the living room watching, listening like she always does, supporting. Love you, baby. I'll see you in a little bit. But other than that, guys, rise up.
Rise up, Cody. Appreciate you being here tonight. David, shout outs for tonight, though.
All right, definitely shout out to the good Lord above for everything he do for us every day. Shout out to you guys for coming on with me every week, sometimes 2-3 times a week to talk on this Falcon football. Like I said, I can always find something to say about the Falcons. I love them. They're ingrained in me. So I appreciate that. Definitely thank Mike for coming on tonight. It was definitely a pleasure sitting down talking to you, sharing some of my views with you here, some of yours. Rise up.
Mike, before we leave out here, the comment section says you should grab your pads and strap up and get out and protect Penix.
Hey, real story. We were in training camp the day after Caleb McGarry got hurt. Terry Fontenot walked up to me and was just joking. He was like, hey, I almost called you yesterday. I was like, what? He's like, no, I'm just kidding.
Mike, if you could do that, if you need ACLs, say I can't play anymore. Obviously, a better suit. If you need an ACL, you tell me, we'll get it removed and we'll give you whatever good stuff I've got.
I'm gonna need all of them. I'm gonna need all of them, baby. Go ahead and line up about 4 of those things for me.
You got you.
Shout out to you guys, man. Go ahead.
Somebody just asked in the chat, can you be the head coach, Mike?
Hey,
There we go, Coach
hey,
Mike,
they hang up
like
the phone on me. Hey, who is this? Nah, man.
Falcon fans, man, we appreciate y'all tuning in tonight, late night, Friday night, with all the Falcon supporters. Appreciate you guys for coming through, leaving comments. Hit that like button. Hashtag DFU in the comment section. We have 3. We got a Falcon hoodie, a Julio Jones, or was it Matt Ryan bobblehead?
Julio Jones bobblehead.
Julio Jones, and then my guy David has the Falcon flag to give away. So 3 winners here. If you hashtag DFU, subscribe, guys. We appreciate y'all coming through tonight. Mike, once again, thank you for taking the time out of your night to talk some Falcon football. As always, man, rise up. Thank you to the good Lord above, and we out of here, man. A-Town down. Peace out.
See y'all.
See you, Mike.
I swear I hope that I'm wrong, but just in case I'm on my tip forever on